Good evening, everyone. Well, that's not a good start. Where's my webcam gone? Oh, I didn't test it before I started, so let us fix that first. There I am. Welcome to my weekly Node-RED live stream. Hope you're all doing well. This is my regular hour or so, give or take, of Node-RED development. I'm working on the core of Node-RED, doing interesting things in and around the project, all towards the 3.0 release that we've got coming up end of next month, which is super exciting. So, so there's no shortage of stuff to do. The challenge is often just figuring out what we're going to do for these live streams to be useful. There are a couple bigger pieces of work that I really need to make a start on. That I was contemplating making a start on the live stream, but I think I've decided I'd rather bring them to the live stream once they're underway, rather than me try and figure a bunch of stuff out from first principles. So, what are we up to tonight? Well, if you were here last week, we were noodling around on the debug sidebar, adding more information on the debug messages. Now, I had a busy week last week and I never got round to finishing that off. I did 5 more minutes on it, but there's actually a bit more development work needed on it. So I thought, rather than start something new, it'd be good on the stream just to have this bit of work finished. So that's what we're going to do tonight. It's part 2 of adding the flow name to the debug sidebar output. So if I switch over and say good evening to everyone in the chat, Softy2K, Bobby Tables, Michio, Denon and Steve, and indeed anyone else who's joining, do say hi. Then where did we get to last week? Well, if memory serves, we can inject into the editor, and when we hover over one of these, we get a tooltip with some text in. And that tooltip is, for these guys, is the name of the, although getting a bit of weirdness. So it is the name of the flow that node is on. And we spent a lot of our time looking at these subflows. So these are subflows that one of these, I forget which way around it is, one of them has a subflow inside the subflow, and then there's a debug and a function node inside that inner subflow. So so here, in fact, you can see we've got on flow 3, there is a node called another one, inside which there is subflow 1, inside which there is a function node, and it's that function node that has logged this message. And then this guy, same deal, but it's a node called debug 6. So if you were here at the tail end of last week's stream, this has moved on fractionally in that I've just sorted out the CSS, and that you can just see when I click on, these are buttons that can be clicked on. But as it stands, whichever one I click on, you can see it's this node here that's getting highlighted. You can see it with the orange flashingness, which is the same as if we clicked this one. So the missing piece, and what we're going to focus on for the next few minutes, is fixing these buttons so when you click it, it actually takes you to the right place. So how do we do that? Well, how do we do that? That's what I've got to page into memory, because I handily, thinking I was going to do something else this evening, just closed all my open tabs, which had all the code we were editing last time. So, the small bit of complication, which we covered last week, is the code that does this rendering. Because that code can get loaded in this pop-out window, then that code lives with an abstraction layer between it and the knowledge of what the nodes are, and it can. There's a messaging API that browsers use that allow child windows to exchange messages with the parent window that opened them. And so there is a sort of an API defined in the debug node code that allows that pop-out window to communicate with the parent window, which is how we're able to interact, both send messages to the debug window, but also when you hover over and click on things in that popped open window, have it react to what you're doing in the editor. But the key point in all of that is, because we've got this API shim, the code in the debug sidebar can't just look up a node ID. It can't just grab all the information it needs. We have to have looked it up when we pass the message to the debug sidebar in order to display. So what I'm looking for right now is, here we are. This I've been padding for time whilst I look. So here's the code we added. So this is in the debug sidebar when we're building up the appearance of the message in the sidebar. Then we create a tooltip with a content function, which is what generates the list of links that you can click on. And we do that because we've passed in path names. So path names was this object we added in the last live stream, which is a list of the names of the things in this hierarchy. So flow 3, subflow, instance nodes, subflows, and the function, the node itself. So we iterate over all of that, and we that is just an array of the names. We iterate over them, and then we add a click handler on each one. So when it gets clicked, it calls, and this is the API shim. Config is this object, is this API shim between the debug sidebar and the rest of the editor, saying message source clicked, and we provide the ID, the alias, and the path to that thing. So if we go up a level, is it in here? Message source clicked. Ooh. We have got, so here's the sort of the instance of that API. We provide the debug sidebar. This does the work to translate those things that get passed in and to figure out, well, what should we actually display? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff around subflow instances, alias IDs, paths, it gets a little involved. So this code kind of makes a best guess as to what it should display. So let's just think about this. It is kind of all hinged on this source ID. Source ID and alias ID. Do we use path? Yeah, and we use path as well. So, okay. So we use all that information. We've got to basically start passing through. I don't know exactly what we need to pass through to get the behaviors we want. We just need to pass more than we are at the moment. So at the moment, this is the code we added last time, where it builds up path names as this array of the names of things, the labels, the names of the nodes and all that stuff. Well, we need to pass through more than just that. So rather than path names, I'm going to change this for the moment. We're going to call it path hierarchy. And I may yet curse myself for choosing the word hierarchy because it's one of those words that you have to slow down when you're typing to spell it right. So rather than just make it an array of names, we are going to make it an array of objects that contain both the name and those other properties we want about, that we care about. So, yeah, rather than just return the label, we're going to pass the ID and let's do label properties. Then here, yeah, we'll do the same deal. Oh, we said label, didn't we? Okay, and then we've also got this one. Oops. So I'm currently using Atom. I've recently, for the day job, moved over to VS Code for reasons. And because I've had a solid week of doing work rather than Node-RED stuff, I spent the last week in VS Code. So my fingers are kind of half trying to do, are beginning to learn VS Code, but not quite there yet. And coming back to Atom means I'm having to unlearn what they've started learning for a few different bits. So I think I'm passing through all the right properties for IDs and labels. So, yeah. So Steve asks, Steve trolls me, as we have spoken about this. Am I enjoying VS Code yet? Yeah, no, it is. There's no doubt. It just, a whole bunch of stuff just works a lot more slickly than Atom, which is a bit sad. You know, Atom does seem to have lost the buzz around it in terms of contributions and progress. Yeah, and Bog tables. Yeah, you're right. I have kind of purposefully not just replaced it with all the Atom keyboard shortcuts. In part, if I'm going to move wholesale over to VS Code, I would rather train myself to be able to use a fairly default VS Code setup. Otherwise, I will forever have to set it up my way before I can use it. There are one or two shortcuts I definitely miss. There's actually some function that, okay, quick sidebar. In VS Code, in Atom, if you can see here, my cursor, let's say, is on the word content. And if I do Control backspace, it deletes to the beginning of the word. And if I do Control delete, it deletes to the end of the word. In VS Code, those exact actions delete to the beginning of the line or the end of line. And I've searched and searched and searched, and I've not been able to find anywhere an action in VS Code that does the equivalent. Like if I'm... anyway, so that is the one that trips me up so often, because I'm just so used to when I'm editing just to be able to delete fragments. And I just can't find what the action is. Maybe it's if it works for you, Steve, that's awesome. Maybe there's a setting I need to toggle somewhere. I just don't know. I've searched and searched and searched and not got there yet. So yeah, I am adapting to VS Code. Trouble is, there are the odd thing that it's just missing functionality. It's I don't mind adjusting to keyboard shortcuts. I'm slowly getting there. So yeah. Oh, now he says so. Control. Maybe it's okay. Quick sidebar. Hold on. Let me check what you're seeing if I do this. Okay, so here we are. VS Code. Well, let's just pull up. Actually, it doesn't really matter what you look at because this is all open source code. So, haha. So here we are. Random bit. If I do command backspace, it goes all the way to the beginning of the line, and command delete does the end of the line. But in there, if I do control, see there, control delete just deletes a single character. So, alt delete. There it is. It's on alt delete, not. Okay, so that might be a keyboard shortcut I swap around. Anyway, I digress. Let's try and stay focused. I'm struggling. Right, so here we have source node path names, but we've changed it. We called it path hierarchy. And we'll change it there as well. So we iterate through, and now we'll call it path part rather than just a single letter. And all that, and we're going to call it path part.label. Okay, and then we're going to pathpart.id. Pathpart, did I call it .alias? No, I didn't. Maybe. Oops. Yeah, maybe. What happens if alias? So alias, it's okay to pass that in null, and likewise that can be null. So, right, let's just see what the behavior is if I just pass in the ID of the thing. Okay. So, there we are. Path names are not defined. Okay. That means I have clearly left one or oh yeah. Okay, so I renamed the variable as I construct it, but not where I set it to pass it through. So change path names to path hierarchy. So now when I hover over, if I click flow 3, cannot read properties of undefined. Okay, reading ID. So didn't quite get it right then. Let's see where. Review. Okay. Right, I'm going to come back to that error because I clicked on the flow name, and I know Steve recently added the ability to reveal a flow and highlight it, but yeah, I need to look into that. So let's do this one. If I click pencil, I'd expect pencil to highlight. If I click debug 6, it's taken me into the subflow and it's highlighted debug 6. Which is what we want. So click pencil, it takes us back to pencil. If I click flow 3, I'll get an error. Okay, that's an edge case we need to deal with if the user clicks on a flow rather than a subflow. Let's look at the deeply nested one and see what its behavior is like. So just clear the console from errors so if anything new arrives. So here we have flow 3. That's going to cause an error. If I click another one, it highlights. see it's highlighting another one in my workspace. If I click subflow 1, okay, it's taken us inside the template for another one, and it's highlighted subflow 1. And then if I hit debug 6, it's highlighted debug 6. So that's worked, apart from clicking the flow ID. Let's just check if can I go, yeah, and it takes me back out, fine. So we're super close, just need to get the reveal of the flow working. Now, I can't remember, I'm hoping Steve chips in a second. So we've got, have we got, no, red dot, no, where is it? Yeah. So we've got red.view.reveal. Let's go. Right, so I'm guessing this is the stuff you added, Steve. I say I'm guessing. Red.workspaces.show with a final argument of true. Let's go see what that's doing. Yeah, flash. So this is the stuff Steve recently added, which is awesome. So just working backwards, we're doing a reveal, and so what's the error we're getting? Cannot read properties of undefined. Right. Okay, so I've gone too deep. Let's just work our way back out. We're at the point where message source click. So we have clicked on something. We've passed these guys in, and basically this is building up that list of things you might have clicked on. I think yeah, what we're going to do is if red.view. No. If red. It's basically this line, or this bit of this line. So they're saying if you've clicked on a flow ID, then red node's workspace will be true. It will return an object. We'll just short circuit it and just do a reveal of source ID. We don't need to do the rest of the logic here, which is more concerned with dealing with subflows and working out the best node to show at any point in time. Which is a big philosophical thing. So here, if I go to a different flow, and if I hover over and I click flow 3, it's switched to flow 3, and you see you get the rather dramatic flashing, which, yeah, it certainly does the job. Yeah, I think this is all working pretty well. So functionally it's working. Visually, I think this is okay. I can't remember, did I play around on the live stream or was it after? I think it was after. I played around with putting flow and subflow icons and the node icon in this view to kind of reinforce what you're looking at. It proved tricky and needlessly fiddly in order to do that. Yeah. But yeah, this is all working nicely now. There is, yeah. Now it's interactive. Whether a tooltip is the right way of revealing it, Yeah, I think. Well, it's probably good enough to PR and good enough to iterate on. So Bob Tables, I did say last week to have a look at maybe using the angled down icon instead of the Unicode text you have. Let's have a look. Font awesome 47. Can never remember which is angled down and which is chevron. Right, so that icon there. So we already use that when we have collapsible sections, don't we? Well, in fact, yeah, in the yeah. So this is the angle down. You can just see up in the top corner in the palette. Visually, that's one we use when there's a collapsible section. So I would be hesitant to use it there because it's not in, again, we use it here because these are collapsible tree elements. Notice we don't use that icon where it's not a leaf node and it doesn't expand any further. So yeah, there is a matter of would that look right given they aren't interactive. But in the interests of, we may as well try. We're all friends here. Let's just neaten this up a little. So it's a bit of horrendous overflowing off the side of the screen. Right. So at the moment, we have all of that. What we'll do then is say if idx is greater than 0, we will create it and prepend to link. And what is link? Link is the A tag we just created. And then we will get rid of that. Let's see what this looks like. So aside from some positioning, yeah. Okay, let's experiment a bit more here. I'm going to add some padding. No, not going to add some margin to the right. Yeah, so okay. Yes, you're right. It should be on all bar the last. If idx is less than source node.path hierarchy.length -1, so we don't want up the last one. Okay, and then we also want this indenting to be consistent. Because before we were using the, before we were doing it differently. So what we need is, actually, if I expand that, what we need is the last entry, which doesn't have the angle, we need it to be padded one bit more. Okay. Is that right? Yes, that is right. So what do we want? We want what do we want? Just think through the logic here. IDX equals source node dot path hierarchy dot length -1. If so, we want to add another, I think 15, otherwise add 0. And I'm probably overdoing it with the strictly necessary brackets, but I'd rather it be readable than we minify code to make it small. I'd rather have more verbose code when we're editing it. Okay, that's working. Probably I went overboard with 15. Let's knock it back. Yeah. So that works well. Let's just go back and look at what does this look like for just a node. Okay, so here we've spent so much time thinking about subflows, we've sort of overlooked the vanilla node case. So in subflows, we get this nice hierarchy, but crucially notice we have the real node at the end of that list. When it is just a node, no, we don't get that. We only get the flow it's on. We don't get all the rest. So yeah, we are missing. We should make sure we have that. We are missing information. So we come back down into the sidebar code, which builds up this path hierarchy. Just yeah, I'm just going to stick a console.log because I can't quite visualize what path parts equals for the case we're looking at where it's just a vanilla node. So inject that. So path parts is just the name of the flow. Just the ID of the flow, you can see. There's two of them because there are two debug nodes rather confusingly. So, but if I hover over, yeah, sure enough, we only get the one entry. So that's this case here when path parts length is 1. The source node is on a flow. So we can look it up directly. And it's this case where it's part of a subflow where we want to do the more clever stuff. Yeah, I think we need to add another case down here. If path parts dot length equals 1, which means this is a regular flow node, then we want to do, well, then we want to pinch this logic. Oh, you see my fingers now, they're Control D in Atom is delete line. It's not in VS Code, and trouble is my week spent in VS Code now means my fingers are hesitating when it comes to delete line. And yeah. Anyway, yeah, here, so we can just use the real node, can't we? Yeah, we can just use the real node. So inject. Now when we hover over, cool, we get the information we want. Well, there we are. I think that's looking, is it looking reasonable? Does that work? We have to bear in mind, for all the fun of getting this working with deeply nested subflows and getting this very satisfying hierarchy, for a lot of users, it's going to be this. It's going to be the, let's just clear that out. It's going to be just the flow and the debug and the name of the node. So does that, where it's just that single level of hierarchy, does that look okay? Are we happy with that? Yeah, there is part of me, it would be awesome to have the node icons and stuff. Try with unnamed nodes. Yeah, so that's this case here. Yeah. So, okay, Bobby tables, well, don't show the, but so Steve suggests don't show the ID. We show the ID up here because we've got nothing else to say. And if we just said the node type up there, there might be some users who, at least the different IDs help you differentiate. And yeah, with the other changes we've made to auto name nodes when you add them, like that, it's less of an issue. But I think having the ID is an important differentiator. Bobby Table suggested chevron down, which is chevron down. So that's the thicker arrow. Well, we don't use, yes, it's thicker. It's probably just on the screencast how well it comes across. But like I said, we use the angle down consistently for showing hierarchy. So I don't think using a different icon helps. Yeah, I'm going to stick with this. Again, we can iterate if we want to go further, but I think this is good for what we've set out to achieve. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. I've already started staging it. These are all the changes we've made. Let's just have a quick squiz through. So in debug CSS, if you remember to last week, we added some CSS to improve the wrapping of these different elements up here as we shrink. So you can see the entire button wraps rather than it doesn't wrap. The entire button moves as one. It doesn't break up the buttons, which is better. Better fitting. Then we fixed up a bit of, again, padding and white space handling across all those different elements. In the popover, I've added some styling because I realized the default style for A tags was picking up the editor default, not picking up the inverted colors that popovers, or the preferred text color of popovers. So added some default styling for that. Then we've done the work in the debug sidebar to handle clicking on the name or the ID of a flow and revealing it. We've done the work to extract out from the debug message this path hierarchy, the list of things that describe where the node is that generated that message. And we get that passed through the messaging layer to the render code for the debug sidebar. And then we've got the code which generates that tooltip if you hover over the name. Not using our tooltip utility function, but using sort of the parent function so that we could tweak these timings. So unlike normal tooltips, these ones display a bit quicker. And the hide I've set to 150. That's in part just from a, well, yeah, for reasons. Sometimes you don't want them to disappear as quickly as they appeared. Did we try node error and node warn? Good question, Steve. Excuse me. So, yeah, let's try that out. So just throw in a debug function, node.error, hello there. Hello there, node, and yep, that's worked. And that goes down exactly the same code paths. I mean, node.warn will do the same. The fact I'm doing that in a function node is well, not irrelevant, it's very relevant, but that is entirely comparable with a node logging an error using the same, an internal error. So that's all goodness. And all of our logic is guarded around if statements about what properties are passed in. So if it's a runtime message, then it won't, those messages don't show a location up there, so none of this logic kicks in. Hookly doke. Let's add debug message path info tooltip fixes. And what is our issue for this? There we are. Include flow name in debug sidebar outputs 3477. Grind, and then push the branch. Add a tooltip to debug sidebar messages to reveal full path to node. When hovering over a node ID in the top right corner, debug message, this PR adds a tooltip that appears with a full hierarchy of flow, subflows, nodes to identify where the node is. All of those elements are clickable to take you to the appropriate spot. Right, create, oh, darn it. Right, I've just created it against master, so I hit edit. I need to rebase this to dev, which is better, only one commit rather than dozens. And whilst we're here, we are going to add Steve as a reviewer. You'll never see it coming. We are going to add this to 3.0. We're going to add it, lots of duplicate 3.0 things there. Successfully merging this pull request may close these issues. Well, you should have already picked that up, because I did link it in the issue, but let's belt and braces it. 3477. There we are. And that's everything we need to do for that tonight. Cool. How are we doing? 8:47. There was... Wow, we could leave it there. Should we leave it there? Probably should. There was another one I was going to speed run, but yeah. Steve asked, are we good to merge master into dev? Yeah, that's a chore I do from time to time, depending how busy master is. Yeah, just to keep all the fixes going into master in sync with dev. It very much depends. I don't let them get too far out of sync, but nor do I do it every time we commit something to master. It very much depends. But yeah, you would be more than welcome to yeah, well, if you've seen things go in to master recently, then by all means you go for it, and pull request it, and we can get that sync done. And yeah, that's one I'm happy for you to raise the PR and merge it, because yeah, hold on. Ooh. Yeah. I don't normally do that via pull request. I normally rather naughtily do commit that straight to dev, but you can pull request it, and we just need to remember when we come to generate change logs, we'll filter out those changelog entries, because yeah. Okay. And well, Bug Tables does remind us that there's great power comes great responsibility, and Steve has been very responsible, which is why he's able to do these things. Okay. Let's look. Where else could we go? I said there are a couple ones I was tempted to try speed running, but that doesn't always go to plan. Just scanning through the issue list here. I mean, here's one. If any of you watching this want to get in with a commit in 3.0 or pull request into 3.0, have a look at this issue, 3493. There is a line of code that is just, it's a bracket is in entirely the wrong place, and there's a discussion in here just double checking it, and yeah, it's a super quick and easy pull request. So if anyone out there, if by the time you're watching this video, if issue 3493 is still open or has not been labelled as fixed, then please do have a go. It's a super simple pull request fix, and the type of thing that, of course, I'll pick up when it needs picking up. But if I keep doing that, then it doesn't leave any good first issue type issues lurking that people can learn from. So now, the one that I was tempted to look at, because it's actually pretty straightforward, is this guy. So it's a complete change of topic. What this is talking about is, if you have admin auth set up, in the editor that whenever you open up the editor, you get presented with a login button. If you've got it to use OAuth rather than username and password. In fact, here's a good test. Can I show you what I'm talking about? Do I really not have? No, I do not have. This is crossing the streams a little, so I'm just going to run up FlowForge, just because the way we run Node-RED is this is pertinent. Can you still see me? Yes, you can still see me. It just occurred to me I'd changed workspace, and yeah. So if I quickly just log into FlowForge, here I've got a project, and if I click this button to open up the editor, oh, it's not running. Why is it not running? This is the problem of me trying to do something live when my workspace is in a slightly indeterminate state. Oh, yeah, okay. I'm not going to try and... I'm not going to... I know what's wrong. I've got 2 different bits of code checked out in 2 different places at different levels, and it's not happy. But the point with this issue is when you open up the editor, if you're not logged in, it shows you the login screen with a button that says click here to log in. And if you click it, it takes you to the OpenAuth or the OpenID provider to do the login and then bounce you back. And this was a requirement raised a couple of weeks ago that they don't want the user to have to click that button. So when they try accessing the editor, it should automatically take them to the third-party single sign-on validation, which will then bounce, if they're already logged in there, it'll take them back and they'll be logged into the editor. So there's actually a super simple, I believe, change needed here. It's just a little involved to set up a test environment for it, which is why I'm not going to try setting that up live for you. Doing it in FlowForge, because FlowForge would actually benefit from this fix, would be one way of doing it. But yeah, I'm not going to try and do that now, actually. I think it's one of those, I know what the change is, but because I can't, to do it properly, I need to set up a proper environment to demonstrate the issue so that I can make the change and verify the change worked. So I'm going to graciously back off that one for the moment. Yeah, if we have a look at Milestone, there's still a ton of stuff in here. Now, a lot of these features are nice to haves. There's no commitment that we'll definitely get them in, but Steve has been doing a grand job. You can see quite a few of these now have pull requests against them and are gradually getting merged, which is awesome. There's still plenty on here that don't, but we'll keep that under constant review. And there's a couple bigger pieces like version control. So this is one I'm actually going to start this week. This is the one I was mentioning at the start. I was toying with starting my exploration on the live stream, but no, I think I need to do some preparation. But when I talk about version control is, if you're familiar with the projects feature, we already have here a history of deploys or a history of commits, like you'd be familiar in a Git repository. In fact, without Node-RED running, I can't show you stuff, so let's get Node-RED running again. And that's all great if you've got a Git repository and if you're happy with all the semantics of Git. There's a proposal around a much more simplified version control. So it wouldn't be the projects feature. It wouldn't, you wouldn't have all of this stuff to do. It would be much more normal Node-RED without the projects feature, but still with, well, at this point I'm now designing off the top of my head, but something like there would still be a history tab, but rather than local changes and a commit history, it would be like a deploy history, and local changes would be a different view. And every time you hit the deploy button, have the ability to create a new version of your flows. So you could come to your history tab and see what's changed between each version and roll back. But the key thing being the underlying storage layer, which is a plugin layer of Node-RED, define it at that layer. So it would be possible to create a database-based storage plugin like you may want if you're running in cloud environments. Because right now, to do the full projects experience, you've pretty much got to implement quite a large surface area of Git semantics, and it's just not practical to do that. Well, I say it's not practical to do. What's super curious and may actually come in is there is Alan Zimmerman in the community drew my attention recently to this isomorphic Git project, which has been around a while, but it is very well maintained, seemingly. This actually gives you, it's a pure JavaScript implementation of Git, to the extent you can actually run it in the browser and manage Git repositories in the browser. And it's super clever in that you it doesn't rely on a file system, which is the main issue we have with the projects feature running in cloud environments that can't rely on persistent file storage. Because when you create your isomorphic Git instance, you pass in an API wrapper that provides some. Here we go. You pass in an API that can provide these simple file system like behaviors. So making a directory, removing it, reading its contents, renaming, statting, write file, read file, and unlink file. So, and Alan did say he had actually done a simple implementation that is backed by a database rather than a file system. And if we go that route, that suddenly becomes quite interesting for running, rather than having to have a simplified version control. Could we actually go with the full Git-like experience in a cloud environment? Is another option. But anyway, I digress. Like I say, there is certainly something to be said, I think, around a more simplified version control that isn't tied to the projects feature, that does give you the ability to, as simple an experience without having to set up Git repos, that does just give you simple history of changes that are persisted. I think there is value in that. But anyway, there's a lot to think about. But with that, we've rolled around the hour. I'm going to stop wittering on. We finished off a nice piece of work. We got the pull request in, gave Steve a bit more work to review and merge. Always good, keep Steve busy. And like I said, there's no shortage of other stuff to be cracking on with. So we'll be back next Monday, same time, same place. Always great to chat to you guys. Thanks for being active in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, if you've got through this far, I'd love to know do drop in a comment. Let me know you've sat through another hour of me wittering away. But yeah, I enjoy it. I hope you do too. We will be back next week. And yeah, have a good week all. Any other parish notices? I don't think so. I'm going to say good night then. Good night all.